Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're totally decoding the mental game of trading. You know, the financial market is a ruthless, high-stakes arena. It doesn't care about your hopes, your dreams, or your bills. It literally only responds to execution. And yet, so many people step into this arena completely unprepared for the sheer psychological warfare that kicks off the second they open a chart. Well, today, we're going to break down exactly why that happens, and more importantly, how you can fix it.
Okay, let's dive right into this with a pretty visceral story that perfectly captures this danger. $269,000. That is the exact amount an Arabic YouTuber named Abdullah Al-Fazan lost live on stream. He was trading Forex, and in his own words, his trades had been going like honey. He genuinely thought he'd found the ultimate loophole in the market. So he took a massive position right before going to bed. But when the market dipped, instead of just cutting his losses logically, his emotions totally took over. He doubled down. He kept reinforcing his position over and over to gather more. And just one single emotional spiral later, his entire life savings were completely wiped out.
And man, sadly, he is definitely not alone. We can look at another incredibly dramatic example of a live streamer who watched over $300,000 vanish in a mere 5 seconds. Just 5 seconds. He took a long position on a highly volatile asset, and suddenly the price just dumped. The value of his portfolio plummeted from $2 million to almost nothing in the blink of an eye. The shock was actually so severe the trader passed out right there on camera. This proves a pretty brutal truth. Having a strategy alone simply doesn't protect you from yourself.
So that brings us to a massive, open-loop question. Why do incredibly smart traders suddenly self-sabotage? Why do people who know the rules suddenly break them, move their stop losses, and just blow up their accounts? Well, these catastrophic losses happen because traders rely on a huge delusion. They rely on what we can call the multi-million-dollar lie of pure discipline. To cure this psychological chaos, we're going to use Jared Tendler's brilliant framework from the mental game of trading. Our agenda for this explainer is 1. The multi-million-dollar lie, 2. Emotions are your signals, 3. Drawing your emotional map, 4. The microscopic worm law, 5. The 5-second override, and 6. The infinite game.
Section 1. The multi-million-dollar lie. Most traders honestly think their main problem is just a lack of discipline. They try to forcefully suppress their feelings, demanding that they just stick to the plan. But here's the thing. When you purely focus on white-knuckling your discipline and bearing your emotions, you're actually setting yourself up for a reptilian brain hijack. Under intense pressure, your highly evolved, logical brain physically shuts down, and your raw survival instincts take the wheel. This biological hijack is the true root cause of revenge trading, extreme FOMO, and those completely blown accounts.
Section 2. Emotions are your signals. Tendler's framework completely flips the traditional script here. Emotions are not some random noise that you need to mute or fight against. Actually, they are your body's highly tuned warning signals. And this brilliantly illustrates the concept. Emotions equal the hot stove reflex. Think about it for a second. If you touch a hot stove, your body sends a massive jolt of pain to make you instantly pull your hand back, right? It's a protective reflex. In trading, feelings like intense fear or blinding greed operate exactly the same way. Fear might just be your brain signaling that your position size is way too large, or maybe that you subconsciously don't even trust your own strategy. Greed might be masking a deep need for control or an attempt to make up for a previous loss. The emotion is simply an alarm bell telling you something is fundamentally out of alignment. Section 3. Drawing your emotional map. We are stepping into a clinical, high-performance coaching mindset right now. The absolute golden rule here is this. You cannot fix an emotional pattern that you cannot see. When you are deep inside a trade, you're just way too close to the picture. You need an external map to regain control before the emotion takes over completely.
So here is exactly how you draw that map. Step 1. Identify triggers. What specific event sets you off? Is it a sudden market drop or maybe even seeing 3 consecutive winning trades? Step 2. Observe the emotion. How does it physically and mentally manifest for you? Does your heart rate spike? Do your hands get all tense? Step 3. Find the repetition. This right here is the key. You trace that trigger and physical emotion back to a repeating behavioral pattern. You have to document this process meticulously so you can finally see the loop you're stuck in.
To understand exactly how unmapped emotions destroy accounts, let's contrast 2 classic profiles. First, we have the hesitant trader. They are paralyzed by fear and perfectionism. They overanalyze everything, wait for way too much confirmation, and constantly miss perfect market entries. On the flip side, you have the impulsive trader.
They are driven by greed, the sheer need for action, and honestly, sometimes just boredom. They jump into the market at every flicker of movement without any logical plan, only to regret it almost instantly. Both are failing, but they're failing because of entirely different, unchecked emotional roots.
Moving to Section 4, the microscopic worm law. So once you've actually mapped your specific flaws, how do you grow? Well, true progress in trading isn't just about focusing on your strengths. A lot of people think if they just study a little more technical analysis, their emotional blow-ups will magically stop. But the mechanics of real growth are very, very different.
Now, what's really interesting about this is a core concept Tendler introduces. The microscopic worm law defines that progress requires both pushing your peak performance forward and pulling your worst habits up from behind. Just think about how a microscopic worm physically moves.
It stretches its front section forward. That's your A game, right? Your absolute best trading days when you follow every single rule. But here's the catch. It literally cannot move forward again until it physically pulls its rear section up. That rear section is your C game, your absolute worst emotional habits, your revenge trading, your panic selling. If you only stretch the front, eventually you just snap. You must diligently pull your C game up from the rear to achieve any kind of lasting mental mastery.
Section 5, the 5-second override. So how do we stop our C game from taking over in real time? Think of this as your highly tactical, in-the-moment emergency brake. It's the exact protocol you deploy when you feel a psychological breakdown starting to happen. Because if we break down the rapid anatomy of a breakdown, it happens terrifyingly fast. Second 1, the trigger hits, say a sudden red candle against your position. Second 2, the automatic emotion floods your system, like intense fear. Second 3, you take an irrational action, like immediately widening your stop loss. Second 4, massive regret sets in. 4 seconds. In a literally 4 seconds, a completely rational trader turns into a desperate gambler.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this single number, 5. You need exactly 5 seconds to pause and break that automatic neurological response. It is all about inserting a wedge of time between the trigger and your action.
The exact protocol is this. Take 5 seconds before you execute anything. When you feel that trigger from your emotional map, you physically stop. You pause for 5 full seconds. You state the emotion aloud, literally saying, I am feeling the urge to revenge trade. You take a deep breath, and then you deploy a pre-planned logical correction. You ask yourself, is this part of my plan? This 5-second override resets your logical brain and stops that reptilian hijack in its tracks. Section 6, the infinite game. Bringing all these concepts together leads us perfectly into our conclusion. To truly succeed, you have to shift your perspective away from the chaotic noise of day-to-day profits and losses. That's a finite, incredibly exhausting battle. Real professionals play the infinite game of continuous self-mastery.
Ultimately, trading is just a mirror reflecting your inner self. The market does not know you exist. It doesn't care if you had a bad morning or if you feel you deserve a win because you studied really hard all week. It will mercilessly exploit your deepest psychological flaws. So mastering the market absolutely requires mastering your own mind. Every unresolved fear, every ounce of arrogance, it will all eventually show up in your account balance.
I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative question to ponder on your own journey. Will you master the market or let your emotions master you? Take the time to map your mind, deploy that 5-second override, and pull your C game up. Remember, the ultimate edge isn't some fancy new indicator, it's you. Thanks so much for diving deep into the mental game with me today on The Explainer. Catch you next time. Hey, everyone.